Hello traders, this is Cousin Vinny coming to you from theclosingprint.com on June 25th, 2017. In this edition of your weekend video newsletter, we'll discuss why we are more bullish than bearish coming into this week. While price action was a bit complacent, the S&P 500 is up 8.91% year to date, and last week we witnessed a rotation back to technology. Financials were a bit weaker. Crude was weak, but we did see HYG and junk move back above their 20-period moving average, a very bullish move over the past 2 days. The bond stock ratio was flat, with no edge to equities and bonds. Bonds, however, were pretty strong to end the week. Institutional sentiment is bullish, and we have the NYSE, NYMO, and the Comp NAMO both range bound and moving sideways. That could look a bit better, so we're watching breadth. Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google, Apple, and Nvidia all closed higher for the week. Nvidia did have a gravestone doji to end the week. Other breadth indicators, the NYHL measuring new highs minus new lows was bullish, with the moving average turning higher. The high-low percent is fading a bit lower. That needs to increase a bit. And we have the NYAD advanced decline trending higher. The put-call ratio is flat, no signal there. VIX closed at 10.02. And the US dollar is range-bound at 97 for the past 3 weeks. The 50-200 cross is still in effect. The 50 is still dropping, and the yen is below its 9 and 20 EMA, lower highs for the week. We saw bond yields flat, with AGG and TLT moving higher. And as we discussed, junk and HYG moved back above their 20-period moving average. Crude was weak, copper's range-bound, and gold is producing higher lows. It turned higher at the end of the week. The heat map is turning more towards red, though technology is pretty strong along with metals and mining. International markets are trending more towards the red, and we'll discuss these IBD 50 names, all of which moved higher last week despite the lackluster performance in the S&P 500. Most of these are NASDAQ and technology related, and we'll more than likely trade many of them this week. Bulkowski shows 3 of 5 green with his CPI signal half red since June 19th. He has a target, if the markets move lower, of 2380 at a measured trend line for the S&P 500. For now, it's contained in an ascending channel near the highs to close the week. Examining the S&P 500 spiders for a moment, price action is contained within this $2.50, $2.75 range. Therefore, we're looking at about $2.50 to $2.75 measured move to the upside if we break higher, and a move back down to this trend line if we move lower. We have volume by price support down below. RSI is tending towards a bullish move this week. On the move lower, we were tapering off on volume, which is a good thing. And then on Friday, we pushed higher, just shy of above average volume. Stochastic is trying to turn. MACD is flat. But more importantly, tick cumulative has turned back up. This is the first time it's dipped below its moving average. This is the 10-period EMA. Moving to the S&P 500 ARUN chart. We have ARUN down at 0, ARUN up remaining at 84, above the 70 zone and quite bullish. With the 50-period moving average moving higher, I think we're probably going to test this high this week, especially if we see technology take the lead once again. So watch for the S&P 500 to move higher if technology, healthcare, industrials move higher. In addition to 5 other sectors, 8 of 12 that we follow had bullish follow-through last week. In addition, NASDAQ gave us a similar look. However, ARUN up has drifted down to the 60 zone. That needs to pop back up above the 70 like we saw back here mid-April. That led to this move higher in the NASDAQ 100. More than likely that will happen as technology took the lead last week. If for some reason technology starts to show signs of distribution or selling into strength, we'll be the first to let you know. Here is the NASDAQ Composite 60-minute chart. This has a beefier mix, if you will. Since 2001, as we mentioned last time, there was a lot more technology, the blue, back in 2001. Since that time, additional weightings have been added so the technology isn't so much of the mix, so it's more like the NYSE. So looking at the composite, this is looking very bullish. We had a hanging man on the 60-minute pushing higher towards the close with RSI trending higher. Tick cumulative rising for the past 2 days over the 60-minute time frame. So that looks pretty good going into the week for the NASDAQ Composite. The Russell 2000 IWM also gives us reason to be bullish. Price action moving back above its 9 EMA. The 200 continues to climb, as well as the 50-period moving average is tilting higher now. Last week we noticed that as well. Price action is above volume by price support levels. And we have stochastic and MACD rising into this week. As far as the New York Stock Exchange is concerned, when we look at all common stock advanced decline, that continues to rise as well. So that's bullish. If anything, we'd want to see divergence, NYAD dropping to begin to think bearish. We're sitting on the 20-period moving average, so we'll have to keep an eye on that this week. The New York Stock Exchange Composite gave us something of a bullish look. After pulling back early in the week, we held right at volume by price. RSI turned back up, and we got 2 bullish candles Thursday and Friday. We still have yet to take out this candle right here. We tested it. We need to push through that on Monday. Stow, good turn, and we want to see high-low turn back up as well. As long as this is above 50, 52-week highs are beating 52-week lows. Another way to look at breadth is to subtract new lows from new highs. As long as new highs are outnumbering new lows, this moving average will turn back up and we'll continue to see green bars above the zero line. Dips below the zero line need to be monitored for sell signals like we saw back here in November, again in March. We briefly dipped and now we're turning back up. So that's another bullish sign for the week ahead. Finally, we have the New York Stock Exchange advanced decline, which is moving higher faster than price action. So long as that continues, breadth is increasingly bullish. At a minimum, we'd want to see some divergence in the NYAD dropping and moving away from price action like we saw back here in March. That's not happening at the present time. It follows that the Wilshire 5000 composite is a broader measure of market sentiment. This continues to push sideways in a range, as we saw in the S&P 500. I do note that Chaikin money flow has started to turn back up towards the middle of the week. We produced a green stick on Elder on Friday. We'd like to see this continue to push higher this week as well. Support is right below, and we have the 50-period moving average turning up. Taking a look at the ratio between the 10-year and the S&P 500, the bond stock ratio, moving sideways, tipped lower towards the end of the week. This is giving you no edge. Stocks to bonds, both can move higher when this is happening. If it starts to drop more and the 65 period continues to drop, that would lean more towards equities. That said, the 20-year continues to rise along its 10-period EMA. Volume by price resistance is starting to build at above 128. Stochastic is embedded. MACD shows bullish momentum continues. More than likely, the 20-year will meet some resistance. If it doesn't, we'll have to reassess at that time. For now, junk bonds bounced off the 50-period moving average fairly strongly. The 20 SMA is just overhead. We'll watch for that intersection, see what happens. Volume by price is fairly large. This looked like profit taking after this nice move from March. So we'll have to monitor this as well. If this turns back up, as Stowe suggested, on higher volume, that would be bullish equities until that changes. At a minimum, we'd want to see a fall off like we saw back here in March as we test the 20-period moving average. If you're bearish equities, you want to see this fail and drop back down below the 50-period moving average. If you're bullish, you want to see continuation. Finally, here is the 10-year yield. This isn't helping banks any with this moving sideways. If this starts to drop a bit more, I would probably offload more shares from our banks that we have holding presently. If it turns back up, we might see banks move with it. So keep an eye on the 10-year yield this week. A chart of the US dollar shows this sideways action since mid-May. The 50-period moving average is dropping fairly quickly. If for some reason this drops lower, we might see higher prices on equities, but we'll have to monitor how the market interprets weakness in the US dollar, because I really don't have a good feeling for what it might mean for equities at the present time. We could come back up and test the 50-period moving average overhead and an extension of this trend line. For now, we'll just keep an eye on the US dollar and how it affects commodities, which at the present time has affected gold in a bullish direction. We pointed out last week these higher lows that we could come down and test this trend line. We bounced before we got there, obviously at 1241.70. We do have overhead resistance at all these moving averages. Anticipate that this could get rejected here if the US dollar starts to move higher. If the dollar does stay in this range, it's a possibility we could get back above these volume by price resistance levels, as RSI suggests. Keep an eye on gold. It might be a nice trade this week as stochastics is moving higher, MACD is turning, and histogram is building shorter red bars, indicating it's headed toward the zero line and that bulls may in fact be in control. With that sideways action in the US dollar, crude has still not been able to find a support level. It looks like it's holding at around $42 a barrel. So West Texas is continuing to experience a lot of selling volume. We'll have to monitor this level over the week ahead and reassess each day. Each week we monitor the sector heat map. As we can see across the top panel, over the past week we've increased our number of red indications. Strength was in biotech, as we can see, large and small cap, in addition to healthcare. Weakness in financials, pulling back a little bit. There was some strength in other sectors that we'll need to monitor as well. As we can see in metals and mining, we'll be monitoring and trading mostly tech this week if we have any indication that what happened last week with Facebook and the other FANG stocks continue their bullish trends. There's a lot of stocks on the IBD 50 that look very bullish for that reason. Additionally, if you're trading international markets, keep in mind we've trended heavily towards the red with few exceptions. So monitor this as well if you're trading those markets. The IBD 50 list this week also gives us lots of reasons to be bullish. As you can see, most of these stocks finished in the green with few exceptions. About 10 stocks finished in the red. Of those, there was a little bit of a mix between financials, technology, cyclicals, and healthcare. Many of the semiconductor stocks look very good. Applied Materials is one. This looks like Facebook last week, where it finished right at its 9 and 20 EMA on Friday. RSI was pointing towards a move through 50. I think that's going to happen here on Applied Materials if other semiconductors can follow through. We're looking at resistance overhead at 44.59 and 47.86. We're looking for an entry around 42.25 or better, and then look to those levels, 44.59 as targets and 47.86 with a stop around 43 initially. We like that RSI is rising through 50. We're looking for MACD and STO to continue their path higher. As you can see, this is more of a bullish indication, and we have about 125% increase in bullish volume last week. In addition, we were looking at BABA last week on this pullback to the rising 9 EMA. Very bullish SOTMA at 45 degrees or better, showing RSI muscle. The bounce was bought. We followed through. On Wednesday, we bought into this rise through this candle right here, and we held into Friday. We're looking for a bullish breakout, take out 144.68. I would trade this one with the trade of the day setup only for entry and exits, looking for continuation this week and a move back to the top of the range. 144.68, then 148.29, then 52-week highs. Price action moving above these levels, there will be no overhead supply as we attack 148.29. We'll add to our position if we start to break higher on Monday. Some stocks like ANET, though not on the list this week, continued to push higher, so watch for that in the telecom equipment group and how it might affect LITE and AAOI as well. Not much you can say about biotech last week. I would look for Celgene to flag. It's not on the watch list, but we are keeping an eye on it. RSI is showing muscle. If we continue to see risk-on appetite into the biotech and small cap group, IWM, RUT, then this is a possibility for continuation. For now, we're just monitoring biotech and the big cap biotechs like Celgene at the present time. The same goes for healthcare providers like Centene, CNC, which continues to push higher, showing RSI muscle. More than likely that'll continue. Perhaps it flags out to give a better entry. Cirrus Logic is also on the list. We're looking at an entry at around 66.10 or better. Semis are being bought off the lows. After that Goldman downgrade 2 weeks ago, these are looking very bullish. Moving back above volume by price, RSI rising, price testing the 20 SMA. Earnings are not due until 7/25. Volume is starting to increase. MACD has turned. Histogram is building shorter bars, and STO is in the red zone. Look for a stop around 64.80 on this one initially if it does pull back. Control 4 Corporation in the smart home software sector and industry group. We're monitoring this one, not a trade or on the watch list this week, looking for more basing action and then possible breakout in the short term. Play, Dave & Buster's, not on the watch list, but I am watching RSI. If it does break to the upside, RSI will start moving and confirming. No overhead supply. If it does break out of this bullish wedge, that would signal a continuation. They don't report until 9/6, September the 6th. Volume is increasing, MACD is starting to turn, and stochastics is pointing higher. Edwards Life Sciences, EW, this has been on the watch list for the last few weeks. We have a measured move on this stock of approximately 5 points. So that's around 123.80 on a breakout above these levels. I'd only use a trade of the day setup to enter. Look for bullish continuation as RSI looks like it's going to get back above the 70 zone and trend higher. Earnings are not until 7/24. MACD is turning up, volume is starting to increase, and STO is pointing higher. Facebook has a measured move of approximately 8 points. Looks like it's going to follow through. Last week we pointed out that if it did jump back above the 9 and 20 EMA, that we'd see follow through, more than likely. This week, if it breaks above this trend line, we're looking for an upside target on Facebook of approximately 163.59. We would only use the trade of the day setup to enter this one, as it has some resistance right here. If it breaks through this resistance, there's no overhead supply, and we could see RSI trending for a few days. MACD has crossed, turning up, volume is increasing, and stochastics is moving higher. This one's a new name on the list, GLPI, and the specialty REITs, gaming and leisure properties. We noted how fast this one broke out last week. Keep an eye on this one and other competitors in the REITs in the specialty gaming and leisure property group. You can check that out by looking at your IBD 50 and doing a stock checkup. Grubhub was looking very good a few weeks ago, then it started to move back at the 9 and 20, built this very large volume by price band as support. Now we have that as a foothold if price action pulls back $4 lower. However, we're going to probably trade this one using the trade of the day setup as a measured move of about $5, target around 51, give or take. Need to have a follow through. More than likely that's going to happen as it's pushing through these resistance levels very quickly, and Bollinger Bands are expanding. MACD has crossed, volume is increasing, and STO is in the red zone. We're following ICHR, not on the watch list, but it does look like it's going to follow through, similar to what we had on Facebook last Friday. Look for that to push higher. Note the volume by price resistance overhead around 25. If it gets through that level, we could test 29.73. As RSI is indicating, we might see higher prices this week. Bollinger Bands are tight. Look for those to expand. Lam Research, LRCX. This was a darling until the Goldman Sachs downgrade on the FANG stocks 2 weeks ago on Friday. So if this starts to push through, look for this to move back to the highs at 167, especially if all the other semiconductors like Applied Materials, NVIDIA, and others move higher as well. LITE are one of those names in the telecom fiber optics group that we're watching. A break above this 64.80 level and this trend line more than likely will give us a nice return. We already have a position. We'll be looking to add this week. RSI is trending higher. Measured move gives us a target of around 70. Earnings are not until August the 9th. MTSI is another one of those names in the semiconductor group. We'll be monitoring along with Applied Materials and LRCX. If those all follow through, as we saw last week, this bullish break of this triangle pattern, more than likely we'll take out 58.87. RSI is suggesting that we could see that. Use the trade of the day setup on this one. It's not on the watch list, but we're watching this above average volume move to the upside. Stochastic and MACD show potential continuation. Mercury Systems, we took profits on this one. It reports again on July 31st. If the stock does flag or pull back to the rising 90 MA, and we get a nice 90 MA rising like about 45 degrees, there's no overhead supply. Perhaps we'll get a buy point there. For now, this one's following through. Nice $2.50 move over the past 2 days. Momo, not on the list, but we are watching RSI rising. About a $6 measured move gives us a target of about 48 on this one. If we can move back above these volume by price bands and follow through the bullish momentum, that would be a good sign. SOTMA is somewhat flat, so if we do push a bit higher, we might start to take some profits unless it really starts to get moving quickly. Volume is picking up, MACD's crossing, and STO is embedded. So watch Momo. Maybe we'll get a trade opportunity this week using the trade of the day setup only. NTES, another name from previous watch lists, following through last week. Really big move, almost 35 points for the week. Completely bullish sentiment on this one. However, you can't trade it unless you use the trade of the day setup effectively. NVIDIA, we have no position, but keep an eye on this one. This one closed lower on the week, producing a gravestone doji. As we can see on this weekly chart, could be nothing, could be something. If we came back to this 9 EMA on the weekly chart at 137.68, I would definitely be interested. I don't think that's going to happen, just judging by the amount of volume hitting the stock over the last 6 weeks. Not to mention the bullish MACD, and stochastics has potential to turn back up. PRAH, healthcare providers, XLV was very strong towards the end of last week. If we start to see that pick up, perhaps this doji pushes prices back to the upside. We need to see a continuation day for us to get interested. What got my interest was the volume spike last week. We'll monitor this one early Monday, Tuesday for a potential trade of the day setup. Paycom continues to move higher. Trade of the day setup only. PayPal, another name we're watching as it rises back to this level at 55.14. If you're still with it, congratulations. Nice hammer here and a follow through this past week. Bollinger Bands are starting to expand. More than likely, we're going to take out 55.14. RSI suggests we have more room to the upside. Earnings are on July 19th. Volume is starting to increase. MACD is turning back up, and STO is moving higher. We have no position in Paycom at this time, but we are definitely looking at it from a trade of the day setup using your 5-minute for intraday scalps. Regeneron, another name similar to Celgene. If those biotech stocks move higher this week, this move back to the 9 EMA might have given you potential for a follow-through on this name. Looking really good volume-wise and with MACD momentum supporting higher prices. Stamps.com from the past 2 weeks continues to push higher. If you're still in this one, no reason to panic yet unless we close below the 9 and 20 EMA. Just keep moving your stops higher with price action under the low of the previous close. TTMI has been on the watch list for the past couple of weeks. When we got this breakout, many of you took this one. Looking for this to follow through. Again, maybe this is a nice scalp. This week, if we follow through and take out 1852 and 1885, we have a target of 2085. So if we get a nice $1.50, $2 out of this one, that would be nice. RSI moving higher, suggesting higher prices. Nice volume on Friday. MACD turning up, showing bullish momentum continues. And Stochastics is pointing to higher price action. THO, not on the watch list, but something we could trade using the 5-minute charts, trade of the day setup. If this continues higher, maybe it's a name that you can get $1 or $2 out of intraday. TransUnion, Specialty Finance. This one popped up on the list because of the strength that we saw last week. The company doesn't have earnings again until September 25th. Got a measured move, about $3, 47.13 if it breaks above these levels. Keep an eye on it. Finance needs to bounce as well. Maybe the banks are strong this week and the whole group can move higher. Viva Systems is also back on the list. It doesn't report until 8/28. Support at 61. We have a stop around 62.90. If it should pull back on Monday, that would get us out of it. More than likely, if you use the trade of the day setup, you have potential to trade this one through this buy signal at 64.52 and 66 as a short-term target. I like Viva Systems for a scalp using the trade of the day setup this week because this pattern gives you about an $8 measured move. If we break through this level, we're looking at 76 overhead as a short-term possibility between now and earnings. As volume indicates, there's a potential for continuation. MACD is turning up, could cross, and Stochastics is pegged and embedded. YY also might move higher. Keep an eye on this one. Trade of the day setup only if you're thinking about an entry in a name like this software company. All right, traders, this is going to do it for me for the weekend. This is Cousin Vinny coming to you from theclosingprint.com. As always, the watch list will be out shortly and a few charts that we're thinking about trading to start the day prior to the opening bell. Take care. We'll see you soon.